Hey everybody, this is Brian LeBlanc, host of this Dementia Life video podcast sponsored by Dementia Action Alliance. Our next episode is going to feature Dr. Daniel Potts. He is a neurologist in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and he's going to talk about not only just neurology, but art and music and dance and his care partnership with his father. So it's an exciting episode, which we will hope that you'll learn a lot. Please join us on the next episode of This Dementia Life. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of This Dementia Life video podcast sponsored by Dementia Action Alliance. I'm your host, Brian LeBlanc. I'm a dementia advocate, and I also am living with Alzheimer's disease. I am very excited about today's guest. Not only is he a neurologist, but he is a musician, a singer, a photographer, husband, and father. I'm speaking of Dr. Daniel Potts of Tuscaloosa, Alabama. He received his medical degree from the University of South Alabama College of Medicine, and he's been in practice for more than 20 years. I'm honored to not only have him on the show, but I'm also honored to call him a friend. His clinical interests include Alzheimer's disease, art therapy, music therapy, dance therapy, and I'm going to brag on him a little bit, which I know he will scoff at, but I don't care. He's the multiple recipient of the Martha Myers Role Model Award, the Patient's Choice Award, America's Top Physician Award, and Most Compassionate Physicians in America Award. He's making me tell you that he's not the only recipient of the Most Compassionate Physician Award. So I just wanted to let you know that. But in my eyes, he is. So, well, Danny, thank you so much for being with us today. It's such an honor. I've been waiting for this interview for quite some time, and I'm just glad to have you on the show.
Brian, the honor is mine, sir. I've really been looking forward to this ever since you and I got to hang out together with some others a couple of weekends ago and have some fun. So it's just a joy to be here. Yeah,
he's talking about we were together for a caregiver conference in Mobile, Alabama, and I can't. Tell me the church name.
Yeah, it was Spring Hill Presbyterian. That
Right.
church is very important. My wife and I actually went to church there when we were in med school. And our friend Beth Reinert there with Dementia Friendly Mobile had us over to her house. We had a great time singing and eating and just enjoying each other's company.
Yeah, and in the intro, I mentioned that he's a musician, but you should hear this guy sing. I mean, he is wonderful. So
listen, you're the musician. I had no idea you could sing that high tenor harmony like you did. You got quite a voice.
Well, I have a big range, so that's just from years of doing this. So
yeah.
Okay, so let's get into this. So you've been a neurologist for practicing neurology for over 20 years. What brought you to that specific part of medicine?
Well, that's a question I like to answer because I think the original thing, Brian, and this goes back to story, this goes back to narrative, and this goes back to life, was the fact that my grandfather was my best friend growing up. He was my fishing buddy. He was the person that I spent Wednesdays with from a little boy on to the age of 10 when he passed away in my 10th year. But he was a close friend of mine. And Big Daddy, as I called him, he had a problem with strokes. And so he had some big strokes that left him kind of unable to interact and in a nursing home and eventually died of those. Well, after he died, I said, I want to do something that can help people like that. And I think I was in my mind kind of helping him, kind of helping him after he had passed on through helping others. So that's why I originally decided to do it. And then I got medicine in med school, and I loved neuroanatomy. I thought it was fascinating, the way these pathways work, the way the brain controls our body and our thoughts and emotions. And so I stuck with that path and went on through, and I'm glad I did. It's an amazing specialty.
Well, you've certainly made a difference in that field, only because those of us that have been diagnosed and gone through the diagnostic process, sadly, not many of us have had a positive experience with the diagnosis process. However, you're different. You're a compassionate guy, and it comes through in your medical practice. Tell us a little bit about that. How has that come to be?
Well, you're kind in your comments, but I'll tell you. First of all, it came from the way I was brought up. I grew up with very loving parents and adults in my community who who bred that sort of ideal and character. I grew up in a small town, where literally, I know people say this all the time, but we didn't lock our doors. We left the cars unlocked. We took care of everybody there. It was that sort of upbringing. But I think, Brian, the thing that I tell people that the key for me was to walk alongside Dad as best I could, and my mother, after Dad got his diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease, and to see up close and personally, what that did as best I could. I didn't live it like you have and like he did, but I tried to see as best I could what it might be like. And it was that more than anything else that has brought it home to me, sir, and to try to be as compassionate and empathetic as possible. That more than anything else. And I tell my students all the time, and others, I tell them, I've learned more from people living with dementia than I have from anybody else about life and about medicine and about how to care for people. So that's really what did it.
Well, I do. That's a great segue, because you mentioned your dad, and I want to talk about that because when we were at the conference, you spoke about him, not only about his journey with Alzheimer's and you walking, right there alongside of him, but some of the things that evolved through his Alzheimer's. So let's talk about your dad a little bit. When was he diagnosed?
Brian, Dad was diagnosed along about the age of 70, in about 2000. Well, he was a little over 70 actually. About 2001 or two is when the diagnosis was made. Of course, he had been having symptoms, which now we look back on and can see several years prior to that. But we talk about denial. So even neurologists are in denial. I was in denial looking back. I saw some things, but I didn't listen, I didn't look, and I denied things. And so about 70 or so, he got his diagnosis. 72 maybe.
And as a neurologist, how did that make you? How did you react to that? Or did you probably knew going into it, but
at some level I knew, I think, but I remember the day that it hit home, Brian. It was in my office. I got a call from a friend of mine who was an attorney, actually. So Dad was working parking cars in a medical facility. He had retired from the lumber business and was parking these cars, and he was having trouble, you see, and I didn't really know he was. He was hiding it. And So his employer, who was an attorney, called up and said, "May I come talk to you today at lunch? I want to talk to you about your dad." So she came over and she told me some of the things that were happening: losing keys, locking keys in cars, getting lost in the parking deck, and that sort of thing. And she said, "I think your dad may have dementia." She said, "My dad has dementia also." And so uh, I look back on the irony of that, an attorney coming to talk to a neurologist about that, and she and I laugh about that now. But that was the day that it all hit, Brian. Here it is. Here's reality, and so I had this conviction about myself as a failure because I didn't recognize it. I felt I'd let him down. I felt I'd let, my mother down. It was a dark day, but looking back, it was also a day, when reality hits you in the face, it hurts pretty bad, but you know what? There's always the hope that comes from that. I'm no longer denying, I'm seeing the way it really is. So then we can move forward. So that's kind of what happened that day. I'll never forget it.
Well, I mean, I understand that as, I guess you had to separate yourself from being a neurologist to being a son, and sometimes the lines could get blurred. So, I mean, I could understand how you felt about that, but the things that you did with your dad, and I want to talk about this discovery that came about through his Alzheimer's. I mean, you just mentioned that he was in the lumber industry for years, and then he was parking cars. Art was nothing, wasn't even on the radar at that point.
Not at all. Dad was the kind of guy that was a utilitarian child of the Depression era. He was working. Everything was about work. He enjoyed work. That's how he lived his life. That's who he was. Well, he found himself failing at that, which he had never done before. One of the hardest things to swallow was that Dad is failing at his occupational identity. And that hurt me because I knew it was hurting him, I mean, they had to hire 3 guys to take his place when he retired at the lumber mill. This is the kind of guy he was. But he
Wow.
never would have sat down and painted or done any art. So the amazing unfolding of him as an artist, rediscovering himself, has completely revolutionized the way I think about this. It truly has.
And then, and I'm going to ask Mike, our wonderful producer and technical guy. He's going to showcase some of your dad's art as we're speaking about this. But it's just amazing that he had no art background.
None at all. I'll just take a moment and describe what happened. So Dad goes to Caring Days adult daycare program here in Tuscaloosa, which is a faith-based dementia daycare facility. And they have available there music therapy, they have art therapy, they have drama, they have all sorts of these expressive arts there. Well, Mother even said, Lester's probably not going to do any of that. He'll listen to it, or he's just not going to, that's not his thing. So fortunately, there was a guy down there, George Parker, a retired artist, who has a story in and of his own. But he was able to offer Dad not traditional art therapy, but George had a knack for sharing his talent. Well, Dad fell along with that, and it gave Dad the opportunity to express himself, I think, through the art at a time when he was having trouble getting his words out. Dad could paint these early life memories, Brian, so vividly with these bright colors and so much expression and freedom. Man, it unlocked his spirit. It gave him sort of freedom from this bondage that he was in. And the result of that was it inspired all of us. So the energy, I tell people all the time, the energy for us to do what we were having to do came from this individual who was living with dementia. It came from him. And so, gosh, the whole room lit up when Lester was painting. And it still does when I show his art. It just
Yeah.
lights up a room because the
And,
spirit was free. The spirit was free.
and I can attest to that when we were at the conference and you were showcasing some of the images that he painted. They were amazing. And
It's, I have no explanation. I mean, I can try, but the bottom line is that this defies uh, neuroanatomy, neurophysiology. It may be more in the realm of theology or spirituality than anything else, Brian, to be honest with you. But what happened is very real, I'll tell you.
yeah, I mean, and you know, with someone living with Alzheimer's, I can attest to the fact that if I don't already know something, I'm going to have extreme trouble learning it. So for someone to not even dabble in anything or artistically, and then he comes up with these creations through Alzheimer's, it just amazes me. So I'm hoping that, you know, something like that will happen later on, you know, to me. But you know, I'm not going to hold out hope for that. But the images that your dad did were just, you know, just amazing. Now, you also talked about music therapy that was at the facility that your dad was at. Let's talk about your background with music, because you completely floored me. Not only when you sat down at the piano and started playing the piano, but then your voice. And I've watched some things and heard you. You're phenomenal.
Well, you're kind. I thank you. I do enjoy it, and I grew up in a musical family. Dad himself was not musical, but he had musical roots in his family. My mother, very musical, voice teacher, piano teacher, choir director. So I had the opportunity to benefit from her training and from her guidance. But and then I went to Birmingham Southern College and had a voice scholarship there. So again, I was able to further my training, and my wife is musical, my family. But again, I go back to a person living with dementia. So Dad, with his own creativity, and you know, the courage, and I get emotional when I talk about this. The courage that Dad had, you know, to let his spirit get out through this creativity. So it touched me. And so while I was looking at Dad's art, I got the desire to create and the desire to express through the arts. And so my creativity grew by leaps and bounds looking at Dad's art. So Brian, I would get up late at night. I never had had played piano by ear, and I would get up and try to pick out things on the piano because Dad was doing what he was. You know, I tried to start writing poetry. I'd never written poetry before. I tell people that's almost as amazing, me writing poetry, as it was Lester painting. I never had done that. Well, I started doing that largely because of Dad's art and my own struggles dealing with his illness. And so, you know, I will say that music therapy had as much impact. And I say music therapy, it truly was traditional music therapy. The University of Alabama music therapy students and faculty come to Caring Days and work with the folks there. So that milieu that they were creating enabled the art to better reach Lester. I think that all of this creativity together, you know, often we find in our own art therapy programs, if we play music in the background and if we sing and if we bring music in, it enables our folks to become more expressive. So truly music is almost unique among the expressive arts in the way that it can tap into the whole brain. And Oliver Sacks describes it as chocolate for the brain, because it does. It gets to that dopamine system in the brain that causes us to feel good And so we express through music. Music is a universal language that speaks when maybe nothing else does. And so it had truly a great impact.
Well, that I can attest to the feelings of music. Like my mother sang in church for over 40 years, and I also sang in church for 40 years. So music has always been a part of my life. But you can hear a certain song or a certain tune or anything for that matter, and it takes you back to a particular time and place, or it can, like you said, it opens you up to experience all these different things that you were experiencing at the time that you heard that music. And it's amazing to me that I hope that carries through into my later stages, so that I'm going to find peace and tranquility in music, because it plays such a big part.
It's huge, and it continues to carry through, Brian. With Dad couldn't sing, we thought, but Dad became able to carry a tune as the disease progressed itself. It was incredible. Dad, in the last week of Dad's life, we surrounded Dad with singers, people that I knew, that he knew that loved to sing. We sang around his bedside. Well, the old guy sang with us. At a time when he couldn't express himself, he sang on key. He sang the words, and this continued right through his life to the end. And I'm very amazed by that. And I'll tell you this, one of the most important things we learned is the expressive arts enable relationship to continue. The expressive arts and creativity allow us as care partners to be able to remain in a relationship with people. It's the most unisolating thing I've ever seen. And so this is one of the things that we tell care partners all the time: make use of music, art, poetry, movement, dance, etc., drama, because you can tap in and remain in relationship with your loved one right through.
Well, you bring up poetry, and I'll follow you on social media and so forth, and I'll see this passage, and I'll start reading. I said, "Oh my God, this is beautiful. This is wonderful." I said, "Who wrote this?" And I see down at the bottom, Daniel C. Potts. And it's like, good Lord, what does he not do? Now he's writing this poetry. He sings. He cares for patients that are going through this really tough time, and you just amaze me every time I look at things that you do.
Brian, I take this opportunity to thank you, but I take this opportunity to give credit where credit is due. I boldly will tell you, I can't even, to quote the old gospel song that I love that we sang the other night, I can't even walk without you holding my hand. So I give credit to God where I'm just limping along, fella. I'm limping along. God is holding me up. And Dad's favorite song, The Unseen Hand, speaks to me like almost no other song, because Lester knew it, my mother knew it, and I know it. And I'm right there with everybody else doing the best I can. But if I let go of the hand, I fall. And so, hey, I'm grateful.
Well, it's just, and speaking of social media, I would like to encourage everyone to go on Instagram and look up Dr. Potts, or look up Daniel Potts, and look at his photography. Now, he's not a professional photographer, but you would not know it from some of the pictures that he takes. I mean, every day when I log on, I'll go to Instagram and I'll start scrolling through, and I see all your stuff because you post almost daily. Whether it's and most of these is when you're taking your walks or your hikes and so forth daily, right?
Yes, yes, yes. And I want to, I'll address that a minute. One of the things that has been so important to me down through the years here, especially recently within the past 5, is I've gone through struggles of my own, both with Dad's illness and just life, is mindfulness. So mindful activities, both meditating, praying, mindful walks in the woods, just trying to be mindful in things that I do, and that has been so important. Nature is really healing. I go out there and I try to start taking photos because I saw beautiful things. Things catch my eye, so I need to capture it. A lot of times it's just with a cell phone. I don't have to have a fancy camera to do that. I've got some photography buddies that know what they're doing that help, have given me some guidance about editing and stuff. But if I see something pretty, I'll try to capture it and put it out there. Because again, Dad's own creativity lit a fire in me. I want to share it. I enjoy sharing it. It's not because I want accolades for that. I share it because it's just an outpouring of this creative spirit that I have now. And I think if Dad hadn't shared that with me through his own struggles, I don't know if I'd be doing that now, Brian. It's one of those things. But yeah, join me at DC Potts MD Instagram. I'll post. You'll get tired of looking at my stuff. I put a lot of stuff out there, but it's a part of my daily routine because it's important for my health, and hopefully it lifts somebody else up as well.
Well, I think that anyone that will look at your photos and so forth, what you take, it just has meaning. It's not the average photo that people take. You find there's such an artistry in your photos. You seem to capture that moment. You capture that it's almost like a beautiful moment in time that's just waiting for you to come along and capture it. And you seem to do that. And I'm thankful for that because as someone that appreciates nature and is an amateur photographer, I appreciate everything that you post on there because it does bring a certain amount of joy. So
well, that makes me feel good. If I can share joy, that's a high calling. And I don't remember who said it. It may have been Joseph Campbell or some other person that's much smarter than I. But moments of contact with beauty, changes. Moments of contact with deep truth, beauty. They're lasting. They change us, and I hope that's what's happening.
Well, I think you're doing a wonderful thing. So, okay, so let's switch and let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the neurological world right now. I know that recently. And I can't remember the university or where it took place, but they are finding that they're giving mice something that's erasing some of the plaques and tangles in the brain. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, there's a lot of exciting things going on. I think that one of the things that we want to do is to continue to keep hope alive in terms of the world of research on elucidating the mechanisms behind Alzheimer's disease and some other dementias and finding effective treatments and cures. There's been some negative press that's come out, with some pharmaceutical companies getting discouraged and pulling out. And I understand those, those business decisions and that sort of thing. But there are a lot of people out there that are bearing the banner and fighting for this. And it's so important. We have within our power the ability to find effective treatments and cures for these conditions. I believe that. And we have to support research through our government agencies, through philanthropy, through our private agencies. And we have to have more people enrolling in research trials, so that we can find a cure, especially people of ethnic minorities, women, etc. We've got to get more people in. And so it's important for people like me and neurologists and others to say, listen, let's find a clinical trial you can participate in and enroll in. So I want to say that. But yeah, there's some exciting things going on. You mentioned the whole the genetically bred mice that are bred to express amyloid protein in the brain, that's thought to be one of the pathologies of Alzheimer's, and the fact that breeding those with mice that produce the mutated enzymes that break down the amyloid so that there's less amyloid accumulating in the brain, and if this results in an arrested disease process, this is exciting. There are all sorts of exciting other things going on too, looking at some of the enzymes that are thought to be at play here with Alzheimer's, this BACE enzyme, BACE, and that sort of thing. Beta secretase and other things that you hear thrown around on the media.
Right.
The important thing to say is that we need more funding. We need sustained funding. We need government interest. We need support for NIH and their initiatives at brain health and cures. We need to be in the offices of our representatives, talking about Alzheimer's and other dementias. We need to research on effective care modalities also to be just as important. People that live with the disease have already got the disease. We need to support them. So we need care, we need cure, we need funds, and we need hope so that people don't give up and say, yeah, this is within our realm of possibility here. We can do this.
Well, I've always said that in my next life, I want to come back as a mouse, because then I could really make a difference.
That's right. Hey, look, listen, you're making a huge difference. I mean, talk about powerful advocacy and just inspiring people. You and your colleagues who are living with dementia out there doing what you're doing. That lifts us up. One of my goals is to get the neurologists listening to you guys. And that's one of the things that we're trying to do here, is get people listening to you. And so you can teach us a lot.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, we're doing our best, and little by little, we're making progress, getting our faces in front of other people. So we have a couple of minutes left, and I just want to talk about really quick the importance, or what do you feel about the importance of physical exercise, and how, now I know that physical exercise, a lot of people say that if you're physically fit and so forth, it will hold off Alzheimer's, and we all know that it doesn't matter, if you're going to get it, you're going to get it. But does it talk about a little bit about the health benefits of physical exercise and what it does for Alzheimer's?
Prevention through exercise, diet, and other modalities is so important and is underemphasized. I think we as physicians don't do a good enough job of emphasizing this. Diet and exercise, if employed in your life, can reduce your risk by about a half or so for getting any kind of dementia. And so physical exercise doesn't have to be, you don't have to be a marathon runner. If all you can do is 3 days a week, walking or riding an exercise bike for 30 minutes, maybe 10 minutes at a time, it doesn't matter. You can do that. And these are important. They're brain protective. They help, exercise helps to protect the neurons in your brain that are there, helps to sprout connections between neurons, and helps to grow other neurons. It even helps to probably repair your genetic material. it's just very important. You combine that with diet, the mind diet that we all talk about, that Mediterranean style diet. And importantly also your social connections, being social, having brain challenges, creativity, avoiding loneliness, getting good sleep. All of these things are very, very important, but diet and exercise may be the most important things we can do.
All right. And just for clarification, is peanut butter included on the mind diet? Do you know? Or?
Peanut butter. Hey, I'm thankful for peanut butter. I think I would die if it weren't for peanut butter.
You know what?
Yeah.
I'm with you on that.
So it brings up a good point about nuts. Nuts are important. They have antioxidants. They have these omega-3 fatty acids and omega-6 that are important. So nuts are important. Olive oil.
I eat a lot of almonds and walnuts, and a little bit of peanuts, but the almonds I know and the walnuts are very important. So
yeah, peanuts are not quite as good, but I can't give up my peanut butter.
Oh, I know. Yeah, me neither. I tend to eat a little bit too much of that, but that's okay.
Okay,
that's all right. So listen, Danny, thank you so much for joining me here today. I'm glad that I made an introduction back last year at the DAA conference. You just struck me as somebody that I wanted to get to know, and I'm so thankful that happened. I want to thank you for what you do throughout your practice, because you are making a huge difference, and you are, and I told you this when I saw you a couple of weeks ago, that you are the epitome of what everyone would love to see in their own physician. Just the care, the personality, and the genuineness of your care and concern. And I want to thank you for that. And I also just want to thank you for being the person that you are, because you are just, in my opinion, you're a good friend, you're a good person, you're a phenomenal physician, and I think you have a lot more in you for the future, because I sincerely don't think I think you're just starting out. I think you've only just begun.
Well, you're kind, and I don't even know what to say to that, but I'm thankful. I'm thankful for my patients. I'm thankful for my veterans that I see every day that inspire me with their heroism. And I'm thankful for people with living with dementia like you, who are raising the torch high for all of us to follow. So it's my pleasure, my friend.
Well, thank you, Danny. And thank you for watching. This has been another episode of This Dementia Life video podcast with my guest, Dr. Daniel Potts, but he insists that I call him Danny, so that's what I do. But thank you very much for watching. I hope you learned something from it. I hope you take something from it, and tune in for our next episode. And thank you for Dementia Action Alliance for sponsoring this. And thanks to my friend Mike Belleville, who puts everything together to make everybody look good. Thanks a lot, and see you next time.